Not the heavy gray rain of Earth, but soft, shimmering drops that fell like liquid crystal from the high clouds of Zareth Prime. Each droplet caught the light of the twin suns, scattering rainbow sparks through the palace gardens. Ethan stood by the balcony outside the Queen's private chambers, armor polished and rifle at his side. His orders were clear. Remain within 3 paces of Queen Saravina, watch for threats, and speak only when addressed. It sounded simple, but the tension in the air made every second feel heavier than the last. A glance. Too long, the doors to the chambers opened. The Queen stepped out, dressed in a flowing gown of deep violet silk that matched her eyes. 2 attendants followed, carrying data tablets stacked with reports. As she passed Ethan, her gaze flicked to him, just for a heartbeat too long. Ethan kept his face neutral, but inside, he was thinking the same thing he'd thought yesterday. She's studying me. They moved through the palace corridors, the sharp click of her jeweled shoes echoing on the polished floors. Ministers bowed as she passed, but more than once, Ethan caught the way their eyes darted toward him with quiet suspicion. The first question. Halfway to the council hall, the Queen spoke without looking at him. "Where were you born, Ethan Ward?" "Earth, ma'am," he answered. "Northern province." "And your mother?" she asked, her voice calm but with a trace of something sharper beneath it. "Her name was Helen Ward," Ethan said. "She passed away 5 years ago." The Queen didn't reply right away. Her steps slowed slightly, as if she were weighing something. "You have a scar on your cheek," she finally said. "How did you get it?" Ethan touched the faint line, "Out of habit." "Training accident, Your Majesty. Nothing important." Her violet eyes slid to his for a brief second. "Everything is important," she said, and then continued walking. Whispers in the hall. The council hall was crowded. Alien nobles in bright robes argued over trade routes and border disputes. Ethan stood silently near the Queen's right side, his eyes scanning the crowd for anything unusual. At first, it was the usual palace talk, speeches, deals, quiet bribes whispered between allies. But soon, Ethan began to notice it again. The looks. One minister stared openly at him, then leaned to whisper in another's ear. 2 alien guards near the far wall kept their hands on their weapons whenever their gaze fell on him. It was clear, now. This wasn't just human curiosity. This was something else. The first threat when the council session ended, the Queen rose to leave. Ethan stepped forward to guide her through the crowd, keeping his body between her and the nobles. They had nearly reached the exit when a folded scrap of cloth landed on the floor at Ethan's feet. He bent quickly, picked it up, and saw a single phrase embroidered in red thread. "The shadow returns." Ethan's eyes swept the hall, but no one looked guilty. The Queen noticed the cloth in his hand. "What is that?" she asked quietly. "Not sure, ma'am," Ethan said, slipping it into his belt for later inspection. Her expression tightened, but she said nothing more until they reached her private study, an uncomfortable conversation. When the doors closed behind them, the Queen dismissed her attendants. Only she and Ethan remained. She walked to the tall window, looking out at the rain-washed gardens. "Tell me, Ethan Ward, has anyone told you who you look like?" Ethan hesitated. "No, ma'am." She turned, her eyes locking with his. "You bear the face of a man I once knew well, a man who brought this empire to the edge of ruin, my former husband, the king." Ethan stiffened. "I see." "No," she said softly. "You don't. His name was Kalor. He was brilliant, charming, and a traitor. He vanished decades ago, but not before stealing a weapon our enemies still seek. And now you appear, wearing his face like a mirror of the past." Ethan's voice was calm but firm. "Your Majesty, I'm not this man. My record is clean. I've never—" She raised a hand to silence him. "I am not accusing you, but I cannot ignore the danger your resemblance brings. My enemies will not see you. They will see him, and that could put both of us at risk." The sabotage. That night, Ethan was stationed outside the Queen's private dining hall during her evening meal. The other guards kept their distance. They rarely spoke to him now, except for curt orders. Halfway through the shift, a faint alarm buzzed in his earpiece. It was coming from the Queen's private security network. He slipped inside to check. The Queen was fine, seated at the table, but a small black device was lodged beneath the edge of the wall panel near her chair. Without hesitation, Ethan knelt, pulled the device free, and scanned it with his portable reader. The screen showed one word: tracer. It wasn't a bomb. It was a tracker, designed to transmit her location to someone outside the palace. "Your Majesty," Ethan said firmly, holding up the device. "This was under the wall panel beside you." The Queen's eyes narrowed, dangerously. "Who placed it?" "I don't know yet," Ethan said, "but it's not from your official security." Commander Tarek arrived within minutes, his expression grim. "Remove this man," he ordered the guards, glaring at Ethan. But the Queen's voice cut through the room like a blade. "No, he stays." The growing shadow. The next few days were tense. Palace security ran background checks on Ethan again, this time digging deep into his family history. Nothing suspicious came up, but the whispers didn't stop. In fact, they grew louder. Servants avoided his gaze. Guards muttered about old ghosts walking the halls. Late one night, Ethan found another note slipped under his door. "If you want to survive, leave the palace before the shadow claims you." Ethan stared at the words for a long time, then burned the note in his room's small disposal unit. Whoever was behind this wasn't just targeting the Queen. They were targeting him. A dangerous decision. One evening, the Queen summoned Ethan to her private garden. The air was cool, the leaves shining with leftover rain. She stood by a tall, silver fountain, her hands clasped behind her back. "I have considered the risks," she said without turning, "and I have decided you will remain as my escort." Ethan stepped forward. "Even with the resemblance?" "Especially with the resemblance," she said, finally facing him. "If my enemies believe Kaelor has returned, they may act recklessly. And when they do, I will see their faces." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That also means I'll be a target." "Yes," the Queen said, her tone calm. "You will." That night, as Ethan returned to his quarters, he had the sharp, cold feeling that somewhere in the dark corridors of the palace, someone was already planning the next move. He sat at the small desk in his quarters, the soft blue wall light casting long shadows across the room. On the table lay two things: the scrap of cloth with the shadow returns stitched in red, and a small hollow device he had borrowed from the palace archives earlier that day. For 2 nights now, he had been thinking about the Queen's words. "You bear the face of my former husband." She had spoken it with certainty, as if she knew it in her bones. But how? And why did his resemblance matter so much now, decades later? Ethan had no answers, so he had decided to find them himself. The hidden files, the hollow device hummed softly as Ethan accessed the restricted archive. He had memorized a few security bypass codes from his time in the Interplanetary Peace Corps. It wasn't exactly allowed, but right now rules were less important than truth. The screen flickered to life, projecting lines of alien script into the air. Ethan switched it to auto-translate. Royal Record, Kaelor Vathar, former king of Zareth. The first image stopped him cold. The man was taller, older, dressed in regal armor, but the face was almost his own. Same sharp jawline, same brow, even a faint scar in nearly the same place as his own. The resemblance wasn't just close, it was unsettling. Ethan scrolled through the file. Kaelor had been praised for uniting fractured worlds under the Zareth banner, until the betrayal. The record detailed his last known actions: stealing a prototype weapon called the Sunbreaker, capable of destroying entire cities in one strike. He fled before his trial and vanished into uncharted space. But the last note was the one that made Ethan's breath catch. Unconfirmed intelligence suggests Kaelor was seen on a remote human colony 27 years ago. Ethan sat back. 27 years ago. That was just before he was born. Interrupted. A faint sound made him freeze, the whisper of movement outside his door. He closed the hollow device quickly and palmed his sidearm. The door slid open without warning. It was Relar, the young alien guard who had muttered ghost days before. "You shouldn't be looking at those," Relar said, stepping inside without asking. Ethan kept his voice even. "And you shouldn't be entering my quarters uninvited." Relar's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand what's happening here, human. That face of yours, it's not a blessing. It's a curse." "Then tell me why," Ethan said firmly. Relar hesitated, glancing at the shadows in the hallway before stepping closer. Kaelor wasn't just the Queen's husband. He was her greatest enemy. When he vanished, she swore anyone tied to him would never set foot in this palace again. If the wrong people believe you're connected to him, they won't wait for proof. They'll remove you. Permanently. Before Ethan could press further, Relar slipped out into the corridor and was gone, a warning from the Queen. The next morning, the Queen summoned Ethan to her study. The tall windows were open, letting in the warm light of the twin suns. She dismissed her attendants with a wave. "I know you have been in the archives." Ethan stood straight. "Yes, Your Majesty. I wanted to understand why I'm here. Why I look like him." Her gaze was calm, but there was something sharp beneath it. "And what did you find?" "That Kaelor may have been on a human colony," Ethan said. "Around the time I was born?" A faint flicker crossed her eyes, but her tone remained level. "Many rumors surround him. Most are false." Ethan stepped closer. "And if it's not a rumor? If he was my father?" The Queen's voice hardened. "Then you would still not be him. But the court will not care about truth. They will only see the face of their traitor." Pressure from the nobles. That afternoon, during the royal council, the nobles made their move. One by one, they spoke of unsettling resemblances and the need for caution. A minister from the outer provinces stood and said, "Your Majesty, the people remember Kaelor's crimes. To place his likeness at your side is to invite fear into these halls." Ethan stood silently beside the throne, jaw tight. He could feel every pair of eyes in the chamber on him. The Queen listened without expression. When they finished, she rose slowly. "This man is not Kaelor," she said clearly. "He has served without failure since arriving here. Until I see reason otherwise, he remains my guard." The chamber fell silent. The Queen's word was law, but Ethan knew the nobles would not stop here. The attempt that night, Ethan was walking. The Queen back from a late meeting when he felt it. The faint vibration in the floor. The almost inaudible whine of a high-powered weapon charging. "Down!" he barked, moving instantly. A bolt of searing blue energy tore through the air where the Queen had been standing. Ethan's body was already in motion, pushing her behind a marble pillar as another shot scorched the floor. He scanned the shadows and spotted the glint of a scope high on the balcony. Without thinking, he drew his sidearm and fired. The figure vanished into the darkness. Guards poured into the corridor seconds later. Commander Tarek's face was thunderous. "The attacker?" the Queen demanded. "Gone," Ethan said, his eyes still scanning the upper levels. But they weren't trying to miss. That first shot was for you, ma'am. A mark revealed in. The chaos Ethan hadn't noticed until now. His sleeve was torn, exposing the inside of his forearm. The Queen's eyes fell on it, and she froze. There, burned faintly into his skin like an old brand, was a mark, a curling symbol in the shape of a sun with jagged rays. It matched the royal family crest exactly. Ethan saw her stare. "I've had that my whole life," he said quickly. "Never knew what it meant." The Queen's voice was quiet. "It means you are blood." Before Ethan could respond, more guards arrived, and the moment was lost in orders and movement. But the look in her eyes told him everything. She believed it now. The puzzle deepens. Later, in the solitude of his quarters, Ethan turned the events over in his mind. The attack had been too precise. The mark on his arm, the resemblance, the file hinting at Kaelor's visit to a human colony. Piece by piece, the puzzle was fitting together. But the picture it formed was dangerous. If Kaelor was his father, then Ethan wasn't just a human soldier. He was living proof that the Queen's enemy had left an heir. And in a palace full of political sharks, that truth could destroy him before he found out the rest. As he lay down, he had the uneasy feeling that tonight's attack was only the first. Instead of summoning her court or attending the council, she ordered that all outsiders be kept away from her private chambers. Only 2 people were allowed inside, Commander Tarek and Ethan. Ethan entered cautiously, unsure what to expect. The Queen stood near her desk, a small device in her hands. It looked like a sleek silver bracelet with glowing lines that pulsed softly. "Sit," she said. Ethan obeyed, lowering himself into one of the tall-backed chairs. The Queen walked over and placed the bracelet on his wrist. It tightened automatically, the glow spreading up his arm. "What is this?" Ethan asked. "A genetic scanner," she replied. "It reads bloodlines, heritage, and truths." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Truths?" She met his eyes. "It will tell us exactly who you are." The result. The bracelet hummed for several seconds, then beeped softly. A small holographic projection appeared above Ethan's wrist, lines of alien script, translated instantly by the Queen's system. Subject: Ethan Ward species, human, Homo sapiens. Genetic: match 47% shared heritage with Kaelor Vathar, former king of Zareth. Classification: direct descendant, paternal line. Ethan stared at the words. His throat felt dry. "So it's true," he said quietly. The Queen's voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "You are his son." Ethan shook his head slowly. "My mother never said anything. She must not have known." "Perhaps not," the Queen said. "Kaelor was clever. He could charm and disappear in the same breath. It is possible he left your mother before she even realized who he truly was." Ethan leaned back, letting the truth settle. Half of his blood came from a man who had betrayed an empire, a man he had never met, a man whose crimes had shaped the life of the woman now standing before him. The Queen's dilemma. The Queen paced slowly across the room. "You understand what this means, Ethan. If the court discovers this, they will not see you as a soldier. They will see you as an heir to a traitor, and they will move to remove you permanently. I've been a target since I arrived," Ethan said. "This just explains why." She stopped and looked at him. "The question is, should I keep you here at my side or send you away to save your life?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "If I leave, the people behind these attacks will think they've won. They'll come for you again, and maybe next time they'll succeed. I'm not going anywhere." For a long moment, she simply studied him. Then, almost reluctantly, she nodded. "Very well. But if you stay, You will have to face more than just assassins. You will face the full weight of the court's hatred. The stolen weapon returns. 2 days later, news arrived from the border worlds. A Zareth patrol ship had been destroyed. The survivors reported a single terrible detail. The weapon used was the Sunbreaker. The Queen called an emergency council. Ministers and generals filled the throne room, voices raised in fear and anger. "This is Kaelor's doing," one noble shouted. "Who else could activate that weapon?" Another pointed directly at Ethan. "And now we have his blood standing beside the Queen. How convenient." Ethan stood silently, every muscle tense, as accusations flew. The Queen finally raised her hand for silence. "The Sunbreaker is in the hands of a hostile faction," she said. "They may intend to use Ethan's resemblance to Kaelor to infiltrate this palace or to spread fear among our people." Commander Tarek stepped forward. "If they do, it means they will strike soon." The Queen's eyes fell on Ethan. "Which means we will strike first. A dangerous mission. That night, in her private war room, the Queen laid out a plan. Intelligence had traced the weapon to a hidden base on the dark side of a small moon. "You will go," she told Ethan. "They will believe you are Kaelor returned. That may give you the opening you need to disable the weapon before they can." "Fire it again," Ethan glanced at the holomap. "And if they realize I'm not him, then you will have to fight your way out," the Queen said simply. Commander Tarek didn't look happy, but he didn't argue. "I'll assign 2 of my best operatives to support you," he said. Ethan shook his head. "No. If they see Zareth, soldiers, they'll know something's wrong. I go alone." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't forbid it. "Then take this," she said, placing a small crystal disc in his hand. "If you find the Sunbreaker, attach this to its power core. It will destroy the weapon." Before departure, Ethan was preparing in the hangar when the Queen came to see him. The ship's engines were already warming, filling the air with a low hum. She stepped close enough that only he could hear her words. "I am trusting you with more than a mission. I am trusting you with my life and the lives of my people." Ethan met her gaze. "I won't fail you, Your Majesty." For the briefest moment, her expression softened. "Do not fail yourself either, Ethan Ward. You are not your father. Remember that." He nodded, and moments later the small stealth craft lifted from the hangar and disappeared into the dark sky. The moon base. The base was carved into the side of a jagged cliff, its landing pads lit by pale blue beacons. Ethan landed his craft in the shadows, far from the main hangar, and moved on foot. He kept his helmet visor down, letting the shadows hide his features until the right moment. 2 guards spotted him near the perimeter, their weapons lowered instantly when they saw his face. "Lord Kaelor," one whispered. Ethan didn't answer, only gave a curt nod and walked past them as if he belonged. Inside, the corridors were dim, filled with the hum of machinery. The truth. Revealed. He found the weapon in the central chamber. The Sunbreaker was massive, its black surface etched with alien runes that pulsed faintly. Engineers worked around it, guarded by heavily armed soldiers, and standing at the far end of the chamber was a man. Ethan froze. The man was identical to the image in the royal records, Kaelor Vathar himself. Older, but alive. The room fell silent as Kaelor turned and saw him. For a moment, there was only the sound of the weapon's core thrumming. "In the background, so," Kaelor said slowly, his voice a deep echo. "My son." The sun rose slowly over the Zareth Palace, casting long shadows on the silver walls and shining brightly on the crystal spires. But inside the palace, in the Queen's private chambers, the atmosphere was heavy and tense. Queen Saravina sat quietly. In her large chair, her violet eyes fixed on the small device in her hand. It was a genetic scanner, a rare and powerful tool that could reveal the truth about a person's bloodline. Beside her stood Commander Tarek, his silver skin shining. Under the soft lights, and Ethan Ward, the human guard whose face had caused so much confusion. "Are you ready?" the Queen asked calmly. Ethan swallowed and nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Queen moved closer and gently fastened the scanner around Ethan's wrist. The device hummed softly, sending a faint glow up his arm. A small hologram appeared above it, showing lines of alien script that translated immediately into the common language. "Scanning," the Queen said quietly. "This will tell us who you truly are." Ethan felt his heart beat faster. He had never imagined this day would come so soon, or that the truth about his heritage would be so important. Seconds passed, like minutes. Then the scanner beeped softly and the hologram shifted. Lines of text filled the air. Subject, Ethan. Ward, the Queen read aloud. Species, human. Genetic match, 47% shared heritage with Kalor Vathar, former king of Zareth. Classification, direct descendant on paternal line. Ethan's breath caught. His eyes widened. "You're my son," he whispered. The Queen's expression was calm, but there was a hint of pain in her voice. "Yes, you carry his blood. You are his son." Ethan shook his head slowly, trying to accept what he had just learned. "My mother, she never told me. She never said anything about him." The Queen nodded. "Kalor was a man of many secrets. He left the Empire with a weapon that could destroy whole planets. He vanished before anyone could stop him and left behind many unanswered questions. Your mother may not have even known his true identity." Ethan looked down at his hands. "So I'm the son of a traitor." The Queen's voice was gentle. "You are not your father, Ethan. You are your own person. But the court will not see it that way. They will see only the blood you share with Kalor." Ethan stood up, his fists clenched. "What do we do now?" The Queen looked toward the window, watching the early sunlight. "We must be careful. The nobles will use this information to try and remove you. You will be a target." Ethan nodded. "I'm ready for that." The court's reaction word spread quickly through the palace. Whispers grew louder and more dangerous. The nobles gathered in the great hall, their robes bright and their faces hard. The Queen called an emergency meeting. The nobles filed in, their eyes sharp as they glanced at Ethan standing beside the Queen's throne. A tall noble from the outer provinces stood up first. "Your Majesty," he began, "it is dangerous to keep the son of a traitor so close. The people will lose faith." Another noble agreed. "This resemblance to Kalor is too much. We risk our empire's safety." Ethan listened quietly, his body tense, but still. The Queen raised her hand, silencing the room. "Ethan Ward has served me faithfully. He has protected this empire since his arrival. Until I see reason to doubt him, he remains my guard." The room fell silent, but Ethan could feel the weight of their eyes on him. The nobles had not given up, a shadow in the night. That same night, Ethan stood guard outside the Queen's chambers. The palace was quiet, but his senses were sharp. Suddenly, he heard a faint humming noise, the sound of a weapon charging. "Your Majesty, down!" he shouted. The Queen dropped behind a marble pillar just as a blast of blue energy tore through the hall where she had been standing moments before. Ethan fired his sidearm at a shadowy figure on the upper balcony, but the attacker disappeared. Into the darkness. Commander Tarek arrived quickly, his face stern. "Who fired that shot?" "Someone trying to kill the Queen," Ethan said, eyes scanning the shadows. "We must increase security," the commander ordered. The Queen looked at Ethan with something new in her eyes. Trust and concern. The D. Mark on his arm in the rush of action, Ethan noticed his sleeve was torn, revealing the inside of his forearm. The Queen's gaze dropped to it, and she froze. Burned faintly into his skin was a mark, a sun with jagged rays, the royal family's crest. Ethan quickly covered it again. "I've had that mark since I was a child," he said. "I never knew what it meant." The Queen said, quietly, "It means you belong to this bloodline. You are connected to Kaelor more than we thought." Preparing for war. The next day, the palace was alive with urgency. Reports arrived that the stolen weapon Kaelor had taken, called the Sunbreaker, was found in enemy hands. The Queen called another council, this time to prepare for war. "Enemies have activated the Sunbreaker," she announced. "They may use Ethan's likeness to the traitor to strike fear and confusion. We must act fast." The council debated fiercely, but the Queen's decision was clear. Ethan was to go on a secret mission to stop the weapon before it could fire again. The mission begins. Ethan prepared in the hangar, checking his weapons and suit. The Queen approached him quietly. "You carry more than a mission," she said softly. "You carry the hope of this empire." Ethan looked at her, determination shining in his eyes. "I will not fail you." She nodded. "Remember, you are not your father. You are Ethan Ward." With that, he boarded the small stealth ship, ready to face the dangers ahead. The hidden base. The stealth ship landed on a dark, rocky moon. Ethan moved carefully through the shadows, helmet visor down. 2 guards saw him and lowered their weapons immediately. "Lord Kaelor," one whispered. Ethan nodded and passed without a word. Inside the base, he found the Sunbreaker, its black surface glowing with strange runes. At the far end of the chamber stood a man, older, but unmistakably Kaelor Vathar. Their eyes met. "So," Kaelor said with a smile, "my son." Ethan stood motionless in the dim light of the hidden base, his eyes locked with the man who claimed to be his father. Kaelor Vathar, once the proud king of Zareth, now a fugitive, a traitor, and a danger to the entire empire. The chamber hummed softly with the power of the Sunbreaker weapon, its black surface glowing with sharp alien runes. Around them, heavily armed soldiers kept watch, their faces unreadable. Kaelor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "So, you've come at last," he said. His voice was deep and commanding, echoing slightly in the cold room. "I wondered when my son would find me." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. "I didn't come to join you." Kaelor's smile faded. "No? Then why do you look like me?" "Because you are my father," Ethan said steadily. "But I'm not you." Kaelor's eyes narrowed. "You carry my blood, but you lack my vision. You're a weak copy." Ethan took a step forward. "You stole a weapon that could kill millions. You betrayed your people. I'm here to stop you." Kaelor laughed, a harsh sound. "Stop me? You're either brave or foolish. Either way, you'll die trying." The confrontation. Suddenly, the soldiers around them shifted, weapons raised. Ethan's heart pounded. He was outnumbered, deep inside enemy territory. But he did not back down. He moved quickly, drawing his sidearm and firing at the nearest guard. The shot rang out loud in the chamber, and chaos exploded. Ethan dove behind a control panel, dodging energy blasts as the soldiers returned fire. His mind raced. The mission was clear: destroy the Sunbreaker. He scanned the weapon's surface, looking for the Queen's crystal disk, the device that could blow the weapon up from the inside. There, near the core, a small opening, just big enough for the disk. Ethan grabbed the disk from his belt and sprinted toward the weapon, a difficult choice. Just as he reached the Sunbreaker, Kaelor appeared beside him, blocking the path. "You don't have to do this," Kaelor said, quietly. "Join me, Ethan. Together we can rule this empire." Ethan looked at him, torn. The man before him was his father, but also the enemy. "I serve the Queen," Ethan said firmly. "I fight for the people, not power." Kaelor shook his head sadly. "You could have been great, but you choose weakness." Before Kaelor could react, Ethan slid the crystal disc into the opening. A warning light flashed. Kalor snarled and lunged at Ethan. The final battle. They fought fiercely. Kalor's strength was immense, but Ethan had training, speed, and the fire of determination. Blows were exchanged, and sparks flew as energy weapons and fists collided. Ethan felt pain, but he did not stop. With a sudden move, he pushed Kalor back, grabbed a control lever nearby, and activated the crystal disc's sequence. The Sunbreaker's core began to pulse violently. "Enough!" Kalor shouted, struggling to grab Ethan. But it was too late. The weapon's destruction. The crystal disc emitted a brilliant light that filled the chamber. The weapon shook as systems failed and alarms blared. Ethan pushed Kalor away and ran for the exit. Behind him, the Sunbreaker exploded in a controlled detonation, shaking the base but preventing a larger catastrophe. Escape and Aftermath Ethan raced through the corridors as guards scrambled to contain the damage. He reached his stealth ship, starting the engines with trembling hands. The base exploded behind him in a fireball of light and smoke. As he flew away, Ethan looked back at the destruction and thought about his father. A man who could have been a king but chose to be a tyrant. Returned to the palace. When Ethan returned, the queen was waiting. Her eyes held both relief and pride. "You did what no one thought possible," she said softly. "You destroyed the Sunbreaker." Ethan shook his head. "I couldn't have done it without your trust." The queen smiled faintly. "You proved yourself, not as Kalor's son, but as Ethan Ward, protector of the Empire. A new beginning." Court was quieter now. Some nobles still whispered, but they dared not challenge the queen's decision. Ethan remained at her side, no longer just a guard, but a symbol of hope. Proof that even the blood of a traitor could be turned to good. And, as the twin suns set over Zareth, Ethan looked forward, ready to face whatever came next.